Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Hakem, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. A little bit later on in the program, we're going to talk to Michaela Rossettie Azemi. She is running for Steuben County Court and Steuben County Family Court. Later on in the week, we got a busy week, folks, as you can imagine. Well, by the way, what did you think of the Madison Square Garden rally yesterday? I'd love to hear your take on that. But looking ahead in our schedule, tomorrow we'll be talking with the candidate for New York State Supreme Court in the 7th Judicial District, Ed White. On Wednesday, running for the same position in the 7th District, the New York State Supreme Court, Stacey Romeo will be our guest. On Thursday, fan favorite, former Congressman Joe Semplinsky will be our guest. And on Friday, we've got a busy Friday. Matt Bozzetti, he's running for Chemung County Family Court, and then later on in the program, we'll have Matt McCarthy on. He is running for Steuben County Court and Steuben County Family Court. And then on Monday, Bobby Ann Cox will be joining us to tell us all about Proposition 1. Let's go through some comments from viewers from over the weekend, then we're going to dive right into it. I ask your thought. What do you think of the Madison Square Garden rally? What did you think? A lot of people were disappointed with the Texas rally from Kamala Harris because Beyonce, of course, was promoted to have been there, and she was going to be there, and she was, but she did not perform, and a lot of people were upset about that. We've got some other just general information, but first, viewer comments. First off, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. This morning, Phil said something, and this was after Friday's show. If you recall, it was Fridays with Phil. Phil Palmisano was our guest, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano. Good morning, Frank. This morning, Phil said something very alarming to me when he said that they were trying to ban the use of natural gas. That is crazy that a government agency can tell you what to cook with. Every Republican you have on your show should be asked what they're doing to stop these crazy electric mandates and runaway taxes. Thank you. It should be all candidates, not just the Republicans. I think Republicans are fighting against it. But it's tough when you have full Democrat control in Albany. When it's single party rule, this is the kind of mandates. These are the kind of mandates that come out. Next up, the Biden-Harris administration has allowed to happen to us who are retired throughout their administration. Harris does not give a you-know-what about retirees. In other words, her and her like have made us paupers. Thank you very much. Here's a comment. And I will ask you this. Did you early vote already? It started on Saturday. Well, this viewer did. When I went to vote on the 26th, I got there 10 minutes early, and there was already about 30 people before me, with more pouring in between the doors before they were even opened. Maybe the discussion of Proposition 1 should be more urgently moved up. Yes. Well, we are going to talk about it on Monday, and we'll talk about it. It doesn't really fit. Well, we'll talk about it with Joe Semplinsky on Thursday. But the rest are judicial candidates, so it doesn't really, they can't answer that. So, yes, Proposition 1, if you're not familiar with it, Phil did a great job on Friday explaining it and talking about the downside to it. It is misleading, but just to kind of boil it down to the simplest form, Democrats are saying vote yes, Republicans are saying vote no, but we're going to find out all about it in depth next Monday as Bobby Ann Cox will be our guest. She was on the program a few weeks ago now with Senator George Borrello talking about the real fears that people have at Proposition 1, the amendment, changing the Constitution, the New York State Constitution, amending it. She talked about the troubling aspects that can come from it. So we will talk with her again on Monday. Next up, in this viewer's opinion, the current administration staying in power is basically reliant on two main forms of rhetoric: abortion and division through our biological differences. Two battle cry sources with no apparent unifying solution. The question we must ask ourselves is, how do we keep our republic together, not how to force it apart? We need less focus on biological and differences and more on unity and overall survival of our country. Lincoln had it correct when he said a house divided against itself cannot stand. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. How about this? Another comment from a different viewer. Less problem speaking, more solution speaking, more frankly speaking. There you go. The bumper stickers write themselves. Yes, thank you very much. More frankly speaking. So as of right now, and again, I would ask you, did you early vote? I have not yet. I am going to early vote. I have not. I did not do it over the weekend because it's right here at the library. I thought I would wait until I wanted an excuse to sneak away, take a walk to the library. But if you did, I'd love to hear your experiences. Please feel free to text in at any time or call and leave a voicemail, 607-358-3131. You see the number on the bottom of your screen. And thank you for all the comments from over the weekend. As of right now, well, at 5 a.m. this morning anyway, last time it was updated, 42,971,303 mail-in and early in-person votes were cast nationally. So nearly 43 million. Now, this is going to be the most expensive election ever. According to the Wall Street Journal, when the dust settles next Tuesday, an estimated $15.9 billion will have been spent on all U.S. federal election races, a record that nearly eclipses the $15.1 billion dished out in the 2020 campaigns. Think about that. $15.9 billion will have been spent on all federal elections. The cost of campaigning for 2 years reveals a huge disparity between the U.S. and other industrialized democracies, according to this piece, where candidates hustle to earn votes for weeks, not years. During their 6-week campaigns in Britain this summer, Keir Starmer raised $12.3 million on his way to becoming a prime minister. Opponent Rishi Sunak received only $2.5 million. And think about that in all federal elections, federal races. $15.9 billion will have been spent. Wow. Even here in New York, I'm getting a little bit sick of all the Trump and Harris ads. Especially if you watch like YouTube, which is where I happen to be watching the Trump rally from Madison Square Garden. Boy, that was, 6 hours? We'll give you a list of who the guest speakers were. And what were your thoughts? Were there any favorites for you? I think Hulk Hogan's doing a pretty good job. Yes, he was there. He was part of it. Don Jr., which does a good speech. He was there. J.D. Vance, great speech. We'll tell you everybody who was on that list. Melania coming out and giving a speech in Madison Square Garden. They said that they could have probably doubled the amount of people that were in Madison Square Garden just from how many people were outside that couldn't make it inside. We'll talk about that as well. Here's a random question that I have a random answer to before we take our first break. Are New Yorkers allowed to take a picture of their ballot? This comes up about every 4 years where they'll be back and forth of, I don't know why people are taking a picture of the ballot. I guess unless you are actually running for something, then I understand it. But in the state of New York, it depends on what the ballot shows. According to the New York State's Board of Elections, taking a picture of a blank ballot is allowed. Quote, taking a photo at the polling place or with a blank ballot is permitted. However, voters should not be disruptive to poll workers or other voters, a spokesperson for the New York State Board of Elections said. In New York, it's illegal to take a picture of a completed ballot showing who you voted for. That's interesting. I'm not going to read all the legalese language. At least 14 states have made it illegal to take a ballot selfie, according to the Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression. Many New York lawmakers have been trying to change the current ballot photo law. Well, it's good they're focused on what's important. Senate Bill S-661 was introduced last legislative session. The summary reads, quote, allow voters to take photographs of themselves and their ballot or absentee ballot while in a privacy booth and to share and disseminate such photographs on social media. But the bill failed to make it out of committee. So for whatever that's worth, there's your update. Now, nearly half of Americans think that members of the opposing political party are downright evil, according to a new poll. Nearly half of eligible voters in the U.S. believe that those in the opposing political party are, quote, downright evil, according to a new poll conducted by Johns Hopkins University. The country's divisiveness was clearly illustrated by the survey, which was conducted twice, first from July 26th to July 30th, mere weeks after the first assassination attempt on former President Trump, and the second from September 6th through September 18th. Roughly 2,000 respondents were split up into 5 categories for the poll: Republicans who believe Donald Trump won in 2020, Republicans who believe that Joe Biden won the 2020 election, Democrats, independents, and then everyone all together. Of the Republicans who believe that Trump won in 2020, 3/4 think that Democrats are evil. On the other hand, half of Democrats consider Republicans evil, according to the survey results. So half of Democrats believe that Republicans are just evil. The poll creator said those divisive beliefs are dangerous for this country's democracy. Quote, vilifying our political opponents is a signal that we consider them to be enemies instead of opponents. The work of governing a democracy requires compromise and mutual respect. These sentiments make that respect nearly impossible, which threatens the health of our democracy. Respondents for the poll answer questions about their party affiliation, political identities, the 2020 election results, where they get their information, and what they think about people from other parties. The published findings are based on the response of 2,000 respondents who create a demographically and politically representative sample of the U.S. electorate, according to the polls. So nearly half of Americans think members of the opposing party, the opposing political party, are downright evil. And talking about that rhetoric, I mean, if you look, if you were to just watch Harris's rallies, interviews, speeches in general, the rhetoric that is being used, comparing Trump to Hitler, bad-mouthing even his supporters, it should come as no surprise why half of Democrats think Republicans are pure evil. And if you look, and we may get to this here in just a little bit, but there's a piece by Michael Goodwin saying Kamala Harris needs to stop the Hitler rhetoric with Donald Trump before we see more violence. We'll tie that in with what we learned there. Nearly half of Americans think members of the opposing political party are downright evil. We got a couple other stories to get to, but I am running a little bit late. Stay with us. We're just getting warmed up here on Frankly Speaking. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. A lot of comments coming in this morning. You can tell it's just a little over a week before the election because everyone's getting fired up. Let's get through them. The rally was fabulous, meaning the Madison Square Garden rally. Thank you. Different comment. Unfortunately, the low information voter will probably glance at the first couple lines of the proposition, meaning Prop 1, and vote yes. Prop 1, so God save New York. Yeah, it is worded in a way that makes you want to, or makes you feel almost guilty not to vote for it. And that's exactly as planned. That's why we're going to learn more about it on Monday's show. We'll talk about the proposition with former Congressman Joe Semplinsky on Thursday as well. Next up, good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. I have not yet voted, but I'm considering the early vote with reservations. I understand. I am going to early vote, first time ever. I can't remember what happened during COVID. Did we have to mail in our ballots? Or I can't remember if it was in person. Next up, wow, different comment from a different viewer. Wow, they packed Madison Square Garden in. What about the two speakers, one knocking New York with the middle finger and the one knocking Puerto Rico, calling them a garbage island? Yes, I already voted for Harris. Well, congratulations for getting out there and early voting. You would be, I think, the second person we heard from on that. But to kind of tie it in with what another comment from a different viewer had to say, almost in regards to what that viewer said, the joker who put down the island was in poor taste. I wonder if the Democrats put him up to it. Yeah, it was done in poor taste. It's too bad that that's what, because of his, I don't know what you call his comedy routine, that has become the focus, not what was really a historic rally at Madison Square Garden. We can talk about that. There is a couple other things I want to get to here before that, though. Well, first of all, have you seen the controversy over the Washington Post and Los Angeles Times? They're not endorsing a candidate. The change in tradition for the two esteemed newspapers was ordered by each outlet's billionaire owner, Jeff Bezos of the Washington Post and Patrick Soon-Shiong of the LA Times, and they told the respective editorial departments to kill opinion pieces set to endorse Democrat nominee Kamala Harris over the GOP's nominee Donald Trump. Washington Post CEO William Lewis said he killed the endorsement, not Bezos. The prevailing thought is that the motivation of Bezos and Soon-Shiong was less about politics, but I don't really know. I've never really had that much faith that an endorsement by a newspaper did that much. to move the needle for any candidate, maybe at a local level at one point. But Liz Cheney has said that it's fear that's caused Jeff Bezos to not endorse Kamala Harris. When you have Jeff Bezos apparently afraid to issue an endorsement for the only candidate in the race who's stable, responsible adult because he fears Donald Trump, that tells you why we have to work so hard to make sure that Donald Trump isn't elected. And I think also why we ought to not forget what has happened. Forget who's taken brave and courageous stands. And I canceled my subscription to the Washington Post. Just saying. That's Liz Cheney. Okay. It will be the first time in 36 years that the paper has not endorsed a presidential candidate. A blow to Harris, who is already suffering from not being endorsed by the LA Times, which is her hometown paper. Noting that the move allegedly involves Bezos, who reportedly ordered the non-endorsement, with the early vote trends appearing to favor former President Donald Trump. Bezos, the owner of the paper, has several large contracts with the U.S. government. Meanwhile, members of the mainstream media and the Democrat Party are up in arms due to the Post's decision. The outlets also reported that many celebrities rushed to cancel their Post and Times subscriptions after the newspaper did not endorse Harris. All right. Tying in with, and I mentioned it, with the half of Americans thinking that the other political party is pure evil. And when you see some of this rhetoric, we have a lot of it, coming from Harris and her supporters. And here's a piece that I had mentioned in passing, coming from Michael Goodwin. Imagine you're Kamala Harris and you've gone all Hitler all the time, but no assassins have granted your wish and Donald Trump continues to build a significant lead. Now what? That's the crucial question facing the vice president and desperate Democrats as, with apologies to Willie Nelson, the days dwindle down to a precious few. So far, the answer for Harris and her party is a steady drumbeat of more Hitler, more fascist, and more dictator charges, despite warnings that they are dog whistles for violence. Dog whistles, to use their term. It's not a stretch to imagine someone on the edge could conclude it's sane and moral to stop the modern version of a monster who launched a world war and killed 6 million Jews. Judging by her flip response, Harris doesn't care. Quote, "No one should be the subject of violence," she told reporters Friday, then added, "But the American people deserve to be presented with facts and the truth." There you have it. If the trigger man comes, don't blame me because I told the truth. Disgusting as it is, the Hitler charges represent the latest version of the Democrats' 8-year effort to paint Trump as un-American and a threat to democracy. To borrow a phrase the left uses, they're otherized him as a unique danger, putting a target on the back of a man already targeted at least twice and wounded once. Not their problem. They've got an election to win, says Michael Goodwin. The anti-Trump jihad is rested on one lie after another, beginning with a 2016 bid by Hillary Clinton, the FBI, and the Obama-Biden White House to tar him as a Russian agent. The Robert Mueller probe came up empty, but House Speaker Nancy Pelosi picked up the ball and ran with 2 impeachments of Trump, neither of which led to a conviction. Out of office, he instantly became a target of the Biden-Harris Justice Department, which obeyed White House wishes and broke the historic barrier by bringing 2 federal indictments against the former president and playing major roles in 2 state criminal cases. Several civil cases also emerged, all bearing Democrat fingerprints. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court stopped a dozen blue states that aimed to keep Trump off the November ballot. They did, the Democrat agitators claimed, to protect a mock democracy. Right, and the village had to be destroyed to save it. With a pileup of charges against Trump, the smart money assumed he was toast and that Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley were among the Republicans that they thought would win the party's nomination. But they, along with Democrats, were quickly enlightened. As we now know, the Democrats' criminal and civil cases actually made Trump more popular, not less. Something similar seems to be happening now. The nonstop fear-mongering has put him on the cusp of winning the presidency again. And as Michael Goodwin says, I hope it's a landslide. That would be the ultimate smackdown of the dirty tricks and the weaponization of law enforcement and the legal system, all of it amplified by the propaganda media. The Hitler firebombing is the last grasp and seems to be Harris's pathetic closing message. Naturally, Clinton is jumping on the bandwagon. She nodded in smug approval at the party convention when the audience chanted "lock him up," and is now claiming Trump is actually reenacting the 1939 pro-Hitler rally that took place in the old garden with his Sunday rally. Quote, President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it, Clinton said. Even for her, this is really weird. Trump has held scores of rallies in various venues over the last 8 years. Yet this one is Hitler-esque because there was a Bund rally 85 years ago in a namesake building that no longer exists. Get a grip. The nonstop effort to define Trump as outside the acceptable realm have succeeded in one way. The attacks have managed to obscure the fact that he, despite his highly unorthodox personality, is pursuing policies that are far more mainstream than those of Biden and Harris. It's the administration and their party's increasingly radical positions that are way outside the norm of the last 75 years of both major parties. Take the Democrats' unprecedented embrace of an open border. No party or leading official of any persuasion ever dreamed of letting in 10 to 12 million unvetted migrants from all over the world. Yet Biden and Harris have done just that, and she favors giving them all a path to citizenship. They would effectively become legal the day she takes office. Cheap labor and new voters, what's not to like? Similar, the administration's unchecked spending, its see-no-evil approach to high crime, declining educational standards, soaring inflation, and cultural lurches are unprecedented. As such, there are odds with where the majority of Americans have traditionally viewed their government and the world, and where both parties have planted their flags. Not incidentally, those policies have failed, which is why the administration is so unpopular. Abortion is another example of their radicalism. Long after the controversial Roe v. Wade decision in 1973, many leading Democrats, especially Catholics, were sympathetic to the pro-life position and uncomfortable with limitless abortion. The divided sympathies were so strong that Bill Clinton created a linguistic compromise for his party when he declared that abortions would be safe, legal, and rare. Yet these days, no Democrat who hopes for a political future dares suggest abortions should be rare. That would be political suicide. But Trump actually comes closer to the Bill Clinton formula when he supports abortions in cases of rape, incest, and health needs of the mother. By doing that, he has angered a lot of Republicans because the GOP has been a pro-life party. Harris, on the other hand, rejects any compromise or exception to the position of unlimited abortion on demand, even for Catholic hospitals. Against the backdrop of recent history, her position is far more radical than Trump's. Their positions on the corporate tax rate offer another example. When Trump took office in 2017, the rate on C corporations were 35%, among the highest in the world. The changes he pushed reduced the corporate rate to 21%, in line with the 21.3% average in Europe. He proposes now to reduce it 20%, while Harris wants to raise it to 28%. If she gets her way, American companies with international competitors will be at a big disadvantage, and stock prices and employee salaries and benefits would likely change to reflect higher government levies. The pattern extends to foreign policy, where the Biden-Harris belief in appeasement has moved the world closer to a world war. And then, at the end of the day, they call Trump dangerous. I thought that was an interesting piece by Michael Goodwin. How am I doing? Ooh, I'm running late. Yeah, it's going to be one of those kind of mornings. Running late. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. A couple comments from viewers. I watched most of the Trump Madison Square Garden rally. It was actually feeling pretty positive for the first time in a long time. Howard Lutnick, CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, was passionate and powerful, in my opinion. And Dr. Phil was definitely a surprise. He was a surprise, wasn't he? That one caught me off guard. And hopefully he has been enlightened, although I imagine his presence may not be appreciated by Oprah. Any bets on how soon he will be attacked and smeared? Yeah, great question. Probably already is. I just haven't checked that coverage specifically. Next up, a different comment. I find it terrifying how the current administration is claiming President Trump is doing Hitlerian things while they are actually doing it. It's the same old party spin. I agree with Kennedy when he said at the rally that it's not your grandfather's Democrat Party anymore, and that he didn't leave the Democrat Party left him. There is, well, let's take a look. Well, I don't know. Should we? There's so many things I want to bring up about Harris's campaign, but I think we're not going to have a lot of time in the next hour. We're going to have an interview with Michaela, Rossettie, Azemi, running for Steuben County Court and Steuben County Family Court. So, did you see J.D. Vance, by the way, getting into that fiery back and forth with Jake Tapper? Jake Tapper isn't even hiding his disdain any longer for Republicans. GOP vice presidential pick J.D. Vance on Sunday went head-to-head with CNN host Jake Tapper over former President Trump's rhetoric and the fact that some former top aides have called him a fascist. State of the Union's Tapper came out of the gate grilling Vance on Trump's remarks about an enemy from within and retired General John Kelly's suggestion that his one-time boss fits into the general definition of fascist. Vance, 40, in turn, belittled Trump's turncoats, such as Kelly and former Representative Liz Cheney, as warmongers, which led to Tapper to drill down on the 45th president's rhetoric about targeting election officials who cheat. You're taking words out of context, an exasperated Vance said. If you'd like to put up a clip and actually put him in context, I think the American people would realize that Donald Trump is we'll say, a lot more reasonable than the people like Liz Cheney who would like to lie us into war. Now, Jake, we always should remember, step back a little bit. Ask yourself a basic question about network integrity. You guys started talking about the Russia hoax nonstop. Tapper then defended CNN, contending that the FBI was investigating, so we covered it. Republicans have long fumed at coverage of allegations about Trump's purported ties to Russia and accused the media of overplaying the issue and feeding public misconceptions. You took the words of unnamed FBI agents and put them on your network as if they were the gospel truth. You did it again and again, Vance shot back. A viewer of your network wouldn't believe that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin conspired in 2016. Now, that was totally and preposterously false. Tapper insisted that Vance's characterization of the network's coverage was false and reiterated his assertion that the cable news company was merely covering an FBI probe. But Vance said you covered it in a way that gave credence to anonymous sources and accusations. You did it yourself. Your network did it, Jake. They got into a pretty heated exchange talking about Kelly and the like. Tapper responds, so all those 10 people, including the former Vice President Mike Pence, all of those people have this horrible, damaged worldview, and they're all just going after Donald Trump because they want to send people into war? That's really your argument, he said with indignation. And of course, Tapper, you saw it when he was interviewing, who was it? Speaker Johnson last week, that hate and that anger. Absolutely, Vance says, all those people, Jake, they came into office thinking they could control Donald Trump. Then when he said he wanted peace in the world, he raises a good point. After Vance's combative interview with CNN, the network put on Liz Cheney to rebut him. Yep, just to show you how fair they are. CBS's Face the Nation similarly aired an interview with Vance on Sunday, followed by one with Cheney. What we just watched is what it looks like when someone has got to go through unbelievable contortions to find a way to defend the person that J.D. Vance himself called America's Hitler, Cheney said. Vance has since attributed the past attack on his running mate as a warped understanding of Trump at the time that was skewed by the media. Yeah, isn't that amazing? So Liz Cheney, for some reason, has that soapbox. Right after J.D. Vance, she gets to go on and rebut everything that he said. Very interesting, isn't it? Now, how am I doing on time? Yeah, I got to take a short break. By the way, did you see that Michelle Obama is suggesting people not supporting Kamala Harris are racist, sexist? During a rally in Michigan, Obama spoke about how the race between Harris and Trump was too close. Kamala Harris is an extraordinary human being. She's an extraordinary candidate, and she will be an extraordinary president of the United States of America. Mark my words. So, Michigan, with all that being said, I got to ask myself, well, why on earth is this race even close? I lay awake at night wondering, what in the world is going on? And it's clear to me. The question for me isn't whether Kamala is ready for this moment, because by every measure, she has demonstrated that she is ready. The real question as a country, are we ready for this moment? Are we willing to do what it takes to get her across the finish line? Are we going to let ourselves get distracted and fall for the scam? Are we going to lose sight of the dire consequences if we come up short? And right now, folks, I have to be honest, I'm completely sure of the answer to these questions. Y'all give me great comfort in this arena. But this is a big country. That's why all my hope about Kamala is also accompanied by some genuine fear. All right, well, wow, a lot of waves coming in. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. The Boss Security Roof Cam. Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. Good morning, Frank. Oh, hey, thank you. Good morning. Our world is in turmoil, and our political parties are mostly morally bankrupt. And I kind of misunderstand. I think you were saying citizens who don't vote are part of the problem and not the solution. I hope I'm not. Putting words in your mouth. Continuing, I will vote, although neither candidate is ideal. God bless America. Are you going to early vote? Not just to that viewer specifically, but have you already voted? Now, let's talk a little bit, and we'll get more into the Harris campaign a little bit later on. Though I will say, before we talk about the Madison Square Garden rally, a lot of people upset at Harris at the event because the media had kept portraying really as a Beyonce performance in Texas. Critics ripped the establishment media for inaccurately promoting Beyonce's appearance on Friday at a Harris campaign event as a performance in which she would apparently sing for attendees. The Harris event, held in Houston, did not feature Beyonce singing or dancing. Instead, Beyonce only spoke to supporters of Vice President Harris, disappointing fans who expected the pop star to, quote, perform at Kamala Harris's rally in Houston, as the Huffington Post reported, along with many other outlets such as NBC News, MSNBC, Vanity Fair, and USA Today. Jason Miller, a senior advisor to former President Donald Trump, questioned why the media misled voters, while senior advisor Tim Murtaugh suggested the media did so to create a larger crowd than Harris would typically draw. But she didn't sing, disappointing all the people who came to see her and not to see Harris. Why did they lie? It couldn't have been to build a crowd, could it? The Harris campaign held the event in Houston, the birthplace of Beyonce, but a state that Harris has little chance of winning. In the final months of her campaign, Harris is focused on holding events with rich and famous supporters in solid blue states. She has not done as much campaigning on the ground in swing states. Trump, in contrast, has conducted multiple events a day throughout crucial swing states. Earlier in the week, Trump campaigned in North Carolina after serving McDonald's customers in Pennsylvania and holding a rally on Sunday. He attended town hall and held a rally on Wednesday in Georgia. He then rallied supporters on Thursday in Arizona. On Friday, Trump attended an immigration event in Austin, Texas, sat for an interview on Top Podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, and held a rally in Michigan. Oh, yeah, I didn't even mention that. What did you think? Have you watched it or listened to it? The Joe Rogan Experience, the interview, I think it was 3 hours that Trump was late to a campaign event and said to the crowd, essentially, sorry, but we got to win this thing. And the crowd did not seem, the media was trying to make a big deal. Oh, there were some that left. Well, of course, after 3 hours, there's going to be some that leave. But yes, and there's also a report that Kamala Harris's campaign is giving Joe Biden the cold shoulder. Insult to injury for Joe Biden. There are 0 scheduled events for President Joe Biden to campaign with Vice President Harris before Election Day, despite his repeated requests to join his former running mate on the trail, according to Axios. This was reported by Axios yesterday. 3 sources familiar with the growing tension between the Biden White House and Harris told the outlet the presidential candidate's team keeps responding with, "We'll get back to you," when asked about when the current president can hit the campaign trail with her. Harris's team believes Biden is a political liability at a crucial time in the campaign, but is reluctant to directly say so they don't want him to campaign for her, said Axios' Alex Thompson. Another insider told the publication that the pair seemed to be gradually breaking up as Harris's team struggles to balance the respect for Biden's service with their strategy of distancing themselves from this administration's legacy. With Biden's approval rating sitting at just 39%, according to 538, another person familiar with the situation said he's a reminder of the last 4 years, not the new way forward. While White House official denied that this occurred to Axios, 2 sources told the outlet that Biden's team blocked off his schedule for multiple days of campaigning just for Harris's team to let those days pass without accepting his willingness to help. It is not really surprised. It is surprising that you'll have Clinton out there so often. He's been kind of acting a little strange, but they're campaigning with Clinton. And that's Bill Clinton, not Hillary. Bill Clinton. Obama's been on the campaign trail. But yes, Biden suspiciously not being invited to rally for her, to campaign with her. Well, she's done a horrible job of sometimes trying to distance herself from him, but also sometimes embracing him. It's very strange. But I just want to give you those 2 quick updates on Harris's campaign. Now, Trump drew, as you know, 20,000 people to Madison Square Garden, and tens of thousands rallied outside, with one person saying they could have sold the garden twice. Estimates of the number of MAGA faithful in Midtown Manhattan varied, but one cop on the scene guessed that another 20,000 were turned away when officials closed the doors to Madison Square Garden about 4:30 p.m., 3 hours before Trump even went on. They could have sold the garden twice, the police officer said. The source noted that Trump supporters just kept coming from all directions, long after the last guest was admitted into Madison Square Garden. One supporter of former President Trump said he'd been in the wrong line for 2 hours and then was denied entry. Oof. I don't mind, though. We've been to Trump rallies before, so missing one is no big deal, he said. Pushed away by law enforcement, some Trump supporters who didn't make the cut to get in then swarmed nearby bars and restaurants where they changed the channel to tune into the rally. At a bar across from the iconic venue, television sets were tuned in to the rally, and patrons were seen wearing MAGA hats, drinking and chatting with one another. This definitely isn't the usual crowd. They asked for all the televisions to be turned on to the rally. I've already been called a Mexican once, one employee at a nearby restaurant who declined to be named told the Post. Those hoping to get into Madison Square Garden face stiff competition as some people lined up outside as early as Friday. Yes, you heard me right. For a rally on Sunday, some people slept out overnight. By early Sunday morning, roughly 10,000 people had assembled to get in, per an estimate by the Post. Standing outside in the cold weather, many MAGA-loving fans waiting in line had fought through urges to go to the bathroom and were peeved by the lack of nearby porta potties. New York is highly unlikely to be competitive during the presidential election, but the Trump-Vance campaign is hoping to reap the benefits of headlines and media attention. That was one of my thoughts on it from the beginning, because I had some people say, why, just like, why is Harris campaigning in Texas with only a few days to go? Why is Trump campaigning in deep blue New York, Madison Square Garden? But, it is a media kind of mecca of the world. So it's more, I think, about the coverage and the surprise, really, of him being in New York City. The rally will likely double as means of ginning up turnout for the down-ballot Republicans. Trump himself has been optimistic that he could pull off a political upset and, quote, can take New York, but most experts believe that is improbable. When we come back, we're going to tell you who was at the rally. We have a list. Did you watch it? Did you watch the Joe Rogan interview? What were your thoughts? Did you early vote? Those are the questions I am posing this morning. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Boss Security Roof Cam. Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. In my opinion, the Democrats are responsible for the division of our nation. Obama's speech, as well as Cheney's, are only two examples of extreme rhetoric. Democrats are like children who have been caught with their hands in the cookie jar and have to lie to convince the people who have caught them with their hands in the cookie jar to get out of trouble. Thank you very much. So we're talking about the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden. What a lineup. Listen to this lineup. I don't know if this is in order, so I apologize if not. David Rem, who's a childhood friend of former President Trump. Scott Lobato, a live painter. Tony Hinchcliffe, comedian and host of Kill Tony podcast. That's the one that's been receiving quite a bit of controversy. Definitely some wrong-headed comments coming from Tony, but I'll continue. Sid Rosenberg, a New York radio personality. Mary Milben, a singer. Christopher Macchio, an opera singer. Lee Greenwood, he was there, friend of Frankly Speaking. Lee Greenwood, he seems to always be there, doesn't he? Tiffany Justice, the founder of Moms for Liberty. Michael Harris Jr., co-founder of Death Row Records. Sergio Gore, Right for America PAC. Grant Cardone, the CEO of 10X. The 2024 transition team, from the 2024 transition team, Howard Lutnick, chairman and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald, and that's one comment from a viewer earlier on, praised his speech. Steve Witkoff, the founder of the Witkoff Group. Brooke Rollins, president and CEO of the American First Policy Institute. Tucker Carlson, host of the Tucker Carlson Show. Dana White, CEO of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Stephen Miller, senior advisor to former President Trump. Dan Scavino, senior advisor to President Trump. Elon Musk, yes, Elon Musk was back, the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla. Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Laura Trump, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Mayor Giuliani. I missed Mayor Giuliani. Okay, I missed that one. Representative Tulsi Gabbard, she did a really good job. Representative Byron Donalds. Oh, yeah, Representative Elise Stefanik was there. Now, Elise Stefanik and Byron Donalds were both considered to be on the short list for VP. Speaker Mike Johnson and J.D. Vance were all the speakers. I think, wasn't Newt Gingrich there? Did I see a picture of him in the crowd? I don't think he spoke, but that was the lineup. I mean, talk about getting your money's worth if you went to that rally. I think they said it lasted something like 6 hours or something crazy like that. Trump's event comes as the same weekend as Harris had her celebrity guests in Houston with Beyonce and Kelly Rowland. I don't know what to think. Yeah, the list didn't mention Hulk Hogan either, did it? And Hulk Hogan was there, or did I read that and just glance by it? Hulk did a good job, so that must not be a completely updated list. But that was sent from the Trump campaign. As Fox News said, Trump powerhouse guests rock-packed Madison Square Garden with a historic rally. Trump took the stage just after 7 p.m. in the packed stadium where he focused his speech on spiraling immigration, inflation woes, and looking forward towards the future with lower consumer costs and securing the border. The rally was first come, first serve, and sold out within hours of being announced this month. Madison Square Garden has a capacity of 19,500 people. I'm hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer, Trump told the crowd. I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered, and we will put those vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail. Going to kick the you-know-what out of our country as fast as possible, and to expedite removals of Tren de Aruga and other savage gangs like MS-13, which is equally vicious. I will invoke the Aliens Enemies Act of 1798. Trump said Harris was behind the most erroneous betrayal of any U.S. leader due to immigration policies. Over the past 4 years, Kamala Harris has orchestrated the most erroneous betrayal that any leader in American history has ever inflicted upon our people. She have violated her oath, eradicated our sovereign border, and unleashed an army of migrant gangs who are waging a campaign of violence and terror against our citizens. He also said that if he's reelected, he will also immediately ban sanctuary cities across the nation. The massive rally, where nearly 200,000 people tried to gain access, according to Donald Trump Jr., included a handful of high-profile speakers ahead of Trump's remarks, including an address from former First Lady Melania Trump. Other notable guests, like I said, Mike Johnson, Hulk Hogan, Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, Dr. Phil. That, like one viewer had to say, that was a surprise. I'm not sure I don't think that's going to help him. I know he's got off to a kind of a shaky start with his channel. I guess he's got a television channel or an app or something. That's probably not going to help. Trump's speech included a focus on the economy and spiraling inflation and bringing back the American dream. Quite a rally at Madison Square Garden. Did anybody attend? I should have asked that question. Close enough that some of you may have thought anyway of attending. Trump supporters poured out at Madison Square Garden Sunday night, raving about the star-studded guest lineup and former president's candor. Quote, it was such a statement to hold a major event in such a liberal city. And for it to be so packed, that guy has, we'll say, guts. This is my president. After tonight, I have no doubt he's going to win, said Judah Klein, 27, of Brooklyn. I think if they energize New York, and when you come to Madison Square Garden, and not only is it full, but there's tens of thousands of people outside that can't even get into the arena, and thousands of people lining the street, I think it bodes very well for the election, Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman added. As I said, around 20,000 MAGA fans attended the sold-out rally, and up to 20,000 more rallied outside. He says he's going to bring America back and on track, and I believe him. The last 4 years have been absolutely miserable for this country, and he gave me confidence tonight that we have a leader. Doors opened at Madison Square Garden just before noon, and the rally began around 2:30 p.m. and didn't end until 8:30 p.m. Some stood in line beginning as early as Friday morning for that chance to see Trump. We got to take our last break of this hour. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. The Boss Security Roof Cam. Visit Boss Security in Horseheads today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be talking with Michaela, Rossettie, Azemi. We'll come back from our last break of the hour. We'll start the second hour, Frankly Speaking, talk a little bit, and then we will get to the interview with Michaela, Rossettie, Azemi. So Trump says he wants to win New York. Do you think there's a chance? Donald Trump said that New York embodies the spirit, energy, and potential of the American people. It would be such an honor to win New York, and it hasn't been done in decades. Yeah, Reagan, the last one to win. Well, what a heck of a crowd. It was pretty amazing watching what seemed like a heavyweight fight, right, when they showed the crowd. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance said at the rally, if you're expecting me to be so bipartisan, but I will say this for Kamala. that every time she does an interview, I think Donald Trump picks up about 100,000 votes. Now, we're, of course, in one of the proud baseball cities in the United States of America. So, the problem with a softball interview is that you've got to be able to hit a softball. And that's the problem with Kamala Harris. I don't think that she can hit a T-ball based on what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. When she was asked what she would do differently compared to Joe Biden, she said nothing comes to mind. Now, Donald Trump did unveil a new tax break for family caregivers at Madison Square Garden. This was interesting. I'm announcing a new policy today that I will support a tax credit for family caregivers who take care of a parent or a loved one. He added that it's time to recognize those workers after his campaign previously pledged to step up for seniors and family members who care for them. Policy documents released during the Republican National Convention in July mentioned that Trump promises to protect and bolster Medicare while focusing on at-home care for older Americans. A campaign spokesperson told USA Today on Friday that Trump will take care of our seniors by shifting resources back to at-home senior care, overturning disincentives that led to care worker shortages, and supporting unpaid family caregivers through tax credits and reduced red tape. It was not immediately clear how much tax incentive Trump will be proposing or how the credits would work. Vice President Harris has also recently touched on providing more support for caregivers. That includes expanding Medicare to cover home care, the newspaper reported. Trump's latest policy proposal comes after he has campaigned on ending taxes on overtime pay, tips, and Social Security if voters return him to the White House. All right, what'd you think of the rally? What'd you think of Melania? It's been a while since we had heard from Melania. I thought she did a good job. Don Jr. and Eric Jr., or Eric Trump, giving good supper speeches. Hulk Hogan doing his thing. I thought that was interesting as well. What were your thoughts? Who was your favorite of that list? Okay, we are out of time for today, or for this hour, excuse me, not for today, of this hour. Sorry, it's Monday. Just getting our sea legs back. Don't forget, coming up in the next hour, Michaela Rossettie Azemi, running for Steuben County Court and Steuben County Family Court, will be our guest on Tuesday's program, tomorrow's program. 1 week from Election Day, we'll be talking with Ed White. He is running for New York State Supreme Court in the 7th Judicial District. And then on Wednesday, Stacey Romeo, who is also running for New York State Supreme Court in the 7th Judicial District. On Thursday, former Congressman, current candidate for Assembly, and current Steuben County Republican Chairman Joe Sempolinski, fan favorite. He'll be our guest on Thursday. And then on Friday, Matt Buzzetti, who's running for Chemung County Family Court. He'll be in the 6 o'clock hour. And in the 7 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with Matt McCarthy. He is running for Steuben County Court and Steuben County Family Court. And finally, on Monday, Bobby Ann Cox will be our guest to talk all about her opposition to Proposition 1. How'd you like that? All right, stay with us. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up after this. And welcome back to Frankly Speaking, hour number 2, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio here on this Monday morning. Unbelievable that we are just over a week until Election Day. Did you early vote? Are you planning to early vote? What did you think of Donald Trump's rally? 6 hours, they're saying, from beginning to end. So if you were to attend, you got your money's worth, I suppose. Well, they're free, but a couple of comments from viewers. Let's get right to them before I forget. All right, first up, Kamala and Hillary are like wolves with blood on their lips and feathers all around denying they ate the chicken. They called Trump a revengeful man, yet there is little evidence from his first presidency. They said he would bring on World War III, but we had 4 years with peace. I doubt Trump can win New York. The foxes are watching the hen house. Yeah, I don't think listen, I'm jaded on that. I've been full disclosure. I've made that statement numerous times, but it is interesting that he did pack in Madison Square Garden. He did the same, was in the Bronx quite a few months ago. Anyway, another comment from a different viewer. Thought the Madison Square Garden rally was one of the best. Or was the best one, excuse me. It was inspiring for New York's future. Thank you very much. I thought Melania did a really good job wearing a long zebra print dress. She welcomed the crowd to her and Donald's hometown. Deep into the night's lineup, she celebrated all the city's accomplishments before introducing the former president to the stage in a warm embrace. Our hometown, where architectural symbols of strength, courage, and unity create a canvas for the world's undisputed capital of industry, where titans of finance, fashion, and entertainment convene among an iconic range of superior designs. structures, and artistic accomplishments. The First Lady has not spoken publicly on the 2024 campaign trail and has only rarely been spotted next to her husband, choosing to spend her time with her 18-year-old son Barron in Florida and the Big Apple instead. She went to Milwaukee, Wisconsin to sit next to her husband at the Republican National Convention days before he was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, but did not make a speech on stage, choosing to issue a heartfelt statement about the assassination attempt instead. Yeah, and her book's been doing really well. I know it dropped down a little bit, but that's typical after a couple of weeks. The campaign appearances Melania did make were held in private venues, and she was paid hundreds of thousands to appear. As I said, she has been promoting her new book, Melania. And that's another question I'll ask. Have you read her book? I have not. I'm just curious if anybody, I know there were some people trying to buy it, and I think they eventually found it. What did you think? But she made her speaking debut at her husband's Madison Square Garden rally just over a week before Election Day and talked about New York, where she made her career after moving to the U.S. from Slovenia. Melania spoke about New York being unforgiving and about the decline in the quality of life in the city in recent years, while the crowd shouted and applauded her. Love you too, she chimed back at the arena. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. And like the one viewer said, having Dr. Phil there was really threw me for a loop. Hulk Hogan, not as much because he was at the RNC, right? Yeah. So not quite as much. But Miranda Devine says it's a new coalition of MAGA Avengers. A Nazi rally it was not. Madison Square Garden, the greatest arena in the world, where America's most celebrated icons have taken the stage, was packed to the rafters with patriotic Americans cheering on the formidable assembly of Donald Captain America Trump and the Avengers, as some of his surrogates call themselves. Trump's hometown, deep blue New York, whose unpopular Democrat leaders have tried to lock him up, welcomed the former president back as a conquering hero, filling the stadium to bursting with thousands more New Yorkers lining the route from Trump Tower to cheer his motorcade. But in his third and most consequential bid for the presidency, Trump is not alone. He is supported by a surprising group of 5 extraordinary accomplished Americans, including 2 former Democrat presidential candidates who joined him on stage. Jordan Peterson called them the X-Men, the Marvel Comics superheroes, the misfit mutants, geniuses, come to save the Republic. They're Trump's warriors against the monsters of the deep state and the blob of censorship, surveillance, and war. They put the lie to the Democrats' final desperate campaign message that Trump is Hitler and half of Americans are Nazis. There's Elon Musk, the Tony Stark-like scientific genius, quite literally an X-Man, as the owner of the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, and a space explorer who will send a man to Mars. A libertarian, he openly declared his support for Trump after the first assassination attempt. Then there is the son of Democrat royalty, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who abandoned his own presidential campaign to hitch his wagon to Trump as the only candidate who stands against the deep state. Another former Democrat, Army Reserve officer, and 2020 presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. I like when Tulsi Gabbard gives a speech. She, of course, was so instrumental in really Kamala Harris not making it to the primaries back in 2019 in that debate performance when Harris was not prepared to be attacked for some reason, and Tulsi Gabbard came out swinging. Vivek Ramaswamy, that's another one we haven't mentioned. He did a really good job yesterday as well. The smart young entrepreneur who abandoned his own presidential bid to join Trump's campaign. Last but not least is Trump's brilliant running mate, J.D. Vance, the articulate hillbilly who pulled himself out of the Appalachians by his bootstraps. Special mention on the Trump A-team goes to former First Lady Melania Trump, who introduced her husband just after 7 p.m. Much to the chagrin of Trump detractors, she's very much by his side, publicly tender with him at the Al Smith dinner, and carving her own powerful role in the campaign with social commentary in her own book and social media videos. Quote, the city and America needs its magic back, she said. We need the future that we deserve. Then she welcomed him on stage with a warm embrace, 3 kisses, and several pats on the back as they hugged to his trademark background song of God Bless the USA. It was an amazing lineup, really, when you think about it. Musk doing a good job. I thought Robert F. Kennedy even did a pretty good job. Strange sometimes, but I thought he did a good job. Harris's campaign is very proud it received the endorsement of 50 former CIA officers of John Bolton and Dick Cheney. These are the people who gave us the war in Iraq, the worst foreign policy catastrophe that's ever happened in this country. These are the people who gave us the Patriot Act, the Surveillance Act, who are trying to undermine voting rights, weaponize federal agencies. This is the party of Wall Street, big banks, big data, big tech, military contractors, big pharma, big agriculture. We deserve a president who will restore the moral authority of the U.S. and the warfare state and rebuild the middle class. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I was surprised. I did not know. Listen, I know John Bolton has been very anti-Trump in the past. I did not realize he came out and fully endorsed Harris. That's disappointing. The Trump campaign should maximize the visual power of the X-Men in the final days of the campaign because they alone give permission to the undecided voter to choose the dreaded Trump. That's according to Miranda Devine. We got to take a short break because when we come back, we're going to hear from Michaela, Rossettie, Azemi. She's running for Steuben County. Yeah, Steuben County Court. Sorry, I got distracted out there. Steuben County Court and Steuben County Family Court. That's coming up after this. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio. It's hard to believe we're getting so close to Election Day, and we're going to talk about the Steuben County Court Judge and Family Court Judge race. Michaela, thanks so much for being back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be sitting down again with you.
I know this. It's hard to believe we're getting so close, and the nerves are on you. You ready? You ready for that final push?
Feeling like it. I'm a little intimidated by the attire today.
I know. I want to make it perfectly clear before people say I'm misleading about my background. I did not play basketball, but I did. But I am a proud Corning West Viking. I know it came up in our last interview, so I thought it would be only appropriate. And it is chilly in here, so I thought I'd wear this jacket.
It's a nice way to display that rivalry,
that pride.
I didn't want to show you up by wearing mine, but of course I wear maroon.
Of course, like you do every day. All we think about is high school all day, every day.
We have to. But I did find a memento for you.
Okay.
To keep this pride alive.
Okay.
You know, for me, it's like I eat, sleep, and breathe it.
Of
but
course.
For you, it's a little Viking.
A book bag. Look at
Yes.
this. Wow. And everybody watching the show right now is going, this interview fell off the rails.
Right.
No, thank you. That's very nice of you. I will put that over in my pile. Okay. Anyway, so other than your background in high school that we've just been talking about, what is your background in general for people that aren't aware?
All right, well, thank you. As you know, I'm a local gal, born and raised here. My Irish, Italian, Catholic roots were planted right here in Steuben County long ago. Both the Rossettie and Santilli sides of my family are large in number and just as big on family values. So whether it's running neighborhood pharmacies, running a local law practice, handling accounting for local businesses, or teaching in our local school districts, I'm just so proud to be a part of this extended family network that's just focused on building this reputation of integrity, kindness, dependability. I think, when people think of our family, I feel proud that that's what they think of. And as you know, it takes a village.
Of course.
So I'm really blessed to raise my 3 children here, where I grew up, with the support and guidance and influence of grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Those values that I fostered by growing up here are not just influential on how I raise my kids, of course, but also on my practice of law as well. So it's really the foundation of my moral compass, my mission to serve the public, and my dedication to uphold justice for all. And that really eclipses any political views that I may have. But beyond the roots of my family values, I bring 12 years of practical legal experience right here in our region. I've handled cases in substantive areas of law, from disability advocacy, foreclosures, bankruptcies, contract disputes, evictions, criminal matters, divorces, and the full range of family court proceedings. I'm fortunate I've been able to gain this hands-on experience from the moment that I was admitted to the bar when I graduated after law school. But the breadth and variety of legal cases that I've handled provide this incredibly strong infrastructure of knowledge and experience for me to rely upon, something I appreciate in this role as a judge. It's so important. I've collaborated with cutting-edge experts at Cornell in my 7 years there, and I co-counseled some very impactful cases. I've never stopped practicing throughout that whole time. And additionally, this wide range of litigation experience gives me perspective. Appearing in front of judges in these several different counties upstate has allowed me to observe different approaches from the bench. And as I noted in our last interview, this has given me the ability to step back and really assess what is the type of judge that I want to be.
Sure.
I think when it comes down to it, someone who's fair, compassionate, impartial, and upholds the dignity of all people in our county. So that's a little bit about me and
your experience, really, because you mentioned in your practice of the law and the experience. Obviously, this is a 10-year term, and
Yes.
which is remarkable. We're talking about Steuben County Court judge and family court judge. So your experience, you think, fits into the responsibilities of both the Steuben County Court judge and family court judge.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why did you decide, as you had mentioned, you're busy, you've got a family, why did you decide to run for this position?
Well, it wasn't an easy choice,
Right.
but nothing worthwhile ever is.
Right.
My 12-year legal career has been concentrated in helping the public, looking at giving back and helping people who are in difficult situations, and really advocating for justice. Also, my personal life circumstance, as you mentioned, mother of 3 boys, it makes me a very special candidate in this case, for the family court role specifically. It wasn't really so much about breaking this 200-year barrier of never having a mother on the court or shattering any ceiling that motivated me, though. It was that my perspective as a woman, as a public servant, and as a mother, I thought could allow me, and I still believe this, to make a difference in a real way in our county and in people's lives. The other consideration, thinking about why did I decide to run, is that while judges uphold and apply the law, they also are leaders and they represent the county. They're elected officials. And I was moved when I was considering this about the stark contrast between the demographics here and the lack of representation that we have in the court. About 50% of the people here in Steuben County are women. But why have we only ever elected one woman in 228 years of the court's existence? Let me tell you one thing. It is not because we don't have qualified, extremely qualified female attorneys here in our county. I think it's largely in part because change is so hard. It takes a lot of courage to challenge the status quo, especially when this type of challenge could have consequences for clients or for our livelihoods as practicing attorneys here. It really hasn't been easy putting myself and my family in the public eye, but I strongly believe that the people of our county here deserve a choice. They deserve to decide who represents them behind the bench. I know that I have what it takes to do this job admirably, and I have the unique perspective to offer real value to the bench. Ultimately, this opportunity to make a difference in family court from the bench really aligned with my goal of doing the most good to serve the public, and this is the best way that I know how.
And this race is a little different, just for people that aren't aware, only because it kind of became truncated and a little bit quicker. So there's nothing really different like when we talk about the county level. It's just you're going in and voting for one person for this position.
That's right.
So there's not really a lot to explain there, just that some people might have said, where did this race come from? Because it happened quickly.
Right, yeah.
So how is the campaign going so far? And you mentioned the family. They didn't sign up for this. How are they taking it? How are the kids taking it?
Well, your idea of explaining the race.
Yeah.
I know last time I was here, just to go back
sure.
to that, we talked about historical context. And as you know, my family's own history is rooted right here. I'm connected to and fascinated by our origin stories and what shapes us to who we become. In Steuben, especially, I think you'd agree that we are so proud of our traditions.
Of course.
I've been honored to
Yes,
celebrate.
I'm wearing a West High shirt.
Right?
I think so, yeah.
My maroon. In Steuben, being proud of these traditions, I've been excited to celebrate through this campaign season so many people who are honoring traditions in Steuben County, like visiting local restaurants like Katy Estates in Woodhull and watching the Katy family rebuild over and over again after the devastation of the flooding. Connecting with members of the Bath Rod and Gun Club about memories that I had at cousin overnights at my family's hunting cabin.
Sure.
And most recently singing This Land Is Your Land with the members of the Addison Grange, and realizing we have 1,500 farms here in Steuben County. It's really our number one economic what we're founded on, as a county. And 96% of those, according to the census, are family owned. So it's really special. I get a little bit choked up sometimes thinking about how patriotism is intertwined with some of our sacred traditions. I even think about my own public service mission and my career path being inspired by generations of my family members who've given back to this very community that we call home. But it would be a mistake, I think, not for us, for us to not acknowledge the ways that inequity in our history has also shaped our norms. As you may know, our county was founded March 18th, 1796. Our first judge was Charles Williamson. He was appointed that same year, 1796. Frank, do you know what year women were first allowed to practice law?
I'm not doing a test here. No, I didn't know this.
It's the teacher in me, sorry.
Yeah.
So 1918
Oh, wow.
was the first year that women were allowed to practice law in the United States. 122 years after our first county court judge was appointed. And then it wasn't until 139 years later, after Judge Williamson was appointed, that we had our first female judge in New York State. But it took Steuben County 212 years to elect a woman to the bench. I mean, I think it's prudent for us to acknowledge how historically exclusive the bar was at its inception, and how my chosen profession of law that I'm so proud of was originally envisioned as a masculine one. At the same time, I don't think that the people of Steuben County here actually believe that this is a tradition that we should uphold, just for the sake of continuing the status quo. As a county, we have to acknowledge that we're behind in progress in the judiciary across the country when it comes to representation of women in the courts. If we just look at the numbers, nationally, 34% of state courts are currently have women on the bench. In New York, 41% of our judges are women, and an even higher percentage in surrogate, family, and county court judges, the position I'm running for. In Steuben, we are still maintaining the status quo of 0%, right? As far as currently on the court. This has been the norm for 200 years, and as the first mother for running for this position, you can imagine I'm not immune to the impact that our history has on our voters and the mindset of what makes a good judge. I really believe that this county, we are ready for a change. The people that I talk to here recognize the value of empathy, intuition, patience, especially when it comes to family court and perspective. I'm really grateful that this election isn't just reserved for those that are invested in maintaining the status quo of what our legal system has been for so many years. I hear confirmation all the time that people want to see a change. Voters have a voice this time around, and they want to see a highly qualified attorney, a public servant, and a mother to be elected here in family court for the first time. You know, Frank, my son came home the other day and he quizzed me, just like I did with you a few minutes ago.
I hope you did better.
Yeah. He said, Mom, do you know what's on our state flag? And honestly, I had to think about it for a second.
Sure.
I was like, okay, New York state flag. I pictured it, liberty and justice, I said, right? And he said, yeah, but Mom, the really cool thing is both of them are women.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, representation matters, and it impacts hearts and minds, and it inspires generations. So giving people a voice in this process is what builds confidence in our judicial system. I'm so glad to be I'm really honored to be a part of this race for that reason. And I'm grateful to be giving our community a choice for the first time in a really long time. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to come back. I'm going to take a short break, then we'll be back, okay?
All right,
we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. We are broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and we're talking about the Steuben County Court Judge and Family Court Judge race. So we were talking before we went to break a little bit about how the campaign's going so far. So how's it going for you?
It's going well. Campaigning for me has really been about connecting to the people of Steuben County and listening to as many people as I can. I've really enjoyed being a part of the fall festivals, Corning, Prattsburg, Cohocton, and Cornell. Yeah, there really are. The beauty of our region this time of year is unparalleled, but it's probably only overshadowed by the joy and the goodness of everyone that I'm meeting. Who's celebrating this harvest. And I think it's so interesting, especially being a county founded on agriculture, like we talked about. I've also really loved connecting with families through local sports programs, like I do every year with my children. Family court sees children, unfortunately, in some truly awful situations, and sports can be such an amazing outlet for kids.
Of course.
Coaches, like my husband, who volunteer so much of their time to mentor children and guide them. They're really the real heroes. And it was an honor for me to spend time going to games and sponsoring t-shirts for the local youth and soccer and little leagues. I'm also fortunate that I've been able to meet with community-based organizations that have an incredible impact on our community. I've been talking to farmers and hunters, veterans, religious leaders, and community servants at Rotary clubs across our county from Wayland to Corning. And I've really tried to continue to be involved in our community, as I have been my whole life, as a volunteer and giving back, whether that's volunteering for the Wine Glass Marathon or cleaning the disaster relief showers in Canisteo after the flood. It's important as a responsible community member, but also for me personally as a mother to set that example for my kids. And I've talked at length with my boys about what this judicial campaign means and how important public service is. This is a way that I'm hoping to give back. And recently, after talking to my kids about this, I didn't realize how much it sunk in for them.
Of course, yeah.
But my 9-year-old decided to run for student council.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I know, and he's very shy, so I was just kind of blown away. And he's like, Mom, I have so much experience campaigning with you.
Did he have more signs than you?
He did not.
No, okay, all right, just making sure.
But he had amazing content, and we visited so many farms.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that he talked about was, why couldn't the school have a little garden and grow their own fruits and vegetables? And I think just thinking about our county and what that means, it was really special. When he told me that I inspired him through the campaign, I just felt like no matter what, it's all worth it.
Oh, of course.
And he was elected, so I hope that's
good.
Foreshadowing.
Well, now, not in his race, but in your race.
Yes.
What are voters saying as you talk with them?
So whether it's door knocking or tabling at a festival, voters are coming up to me. They're sharing the intimate details of their lives. I'm grateful to have earned people's trust, and I'm honored that so many people feel comfortable opening up to me about their criminal, civil, and family court situations that they've dealt with in our county courts. Honestly, I feel like I could write a book with the number of stories that people have told me this past month alone, really, about their experiences and how most people wish that it was different. Of course, they're in difficult situations, but it's interesting because when they talk to me, it's never really about the outcome. It's about the process. Time and time again, I hear these anecdotes about court proceedings that are unjust or biased or scary or overall disappointing. It's how a father felt blindsided by the custody determination in family court, how a military veteran had to wait an unreasonable amount of time for a pistol permit to be approved, how a misunderstanding of the legal profession and the process and those proceedings left a teenager confused about a plea that he unknowingly agreed to, and how a victim of domestic violence felt terrified, vulnerable, and re-traumatized in the courtroom. Overall, voters are consistently telling me that they want to see change in the court system. They don't want to see things remain the way that they have been the last 10 years, let alone the last 200. It makes me actually very optimistic about the future, and I hope that I get the chance to make voters proud. Additionally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the majority of voters in our county are registered Republicans. That's the demographics. There's a certain obvious and understandable initial skepticism when people meet with me. I've actually been blown away, though, with the number of thoughtful questions I've received from people who are across the aisle who tell me they want to vote for the best candidate and they're not just going to vote party line. Voters are taking this race and the potential for monumental change very seriously. I've shared this one-on-one with voters, but I want to emphasize for the record here today that my goal in seeking this election has nothing to do with my personal ideology or my political views. Yes, I am a registered Democrat, but so many people that I love in my life are registered Republicans. My dad, Mike Rossettie, he's a lifetime Republican. He has probably been my biggest supporter in this. He knows who I am and what potential I could have in this role. He believes I have the heart and the strength to do this job well, as do so many other Republicans that I've met with here. When forming my campaign committee, it was really important for me that despite being nominated by the Democratic Committee, that my own personal campaign committee included Republicans and independents. I didn't want this to be just a Democratic space. Aspirationally, justice is blind, right? So the best way for us to ensure impartiality, which is number one in this position, is that every step of this process, it's important for me to surround myself with people who might have different viewpoints or see things in a different way than I do. They can encourage me to see all angles of the issue. It's honestly how I've tried to live my life, and anybody who knows me, who you talk to, will tell you that for me it's people above politics. Let me tell you a short story if we have time. I worked for Cornell, and I held many different roles when I was there for those 7 years, counseling, advocating, and teaching. One of the things that I did was coaching, and I was coaching this student who had come to me interested in seeking federal or state clerkship. A judicial law clerk, as you probably know, is an incredibly important job. It's the role of an attorney that works hand in hand with a judge to review, analyze, and brief cases. The writing in judicial chambers is a collaborative process, and the law clerk has the potential to have an enormous impact on the outcome. So a few years ago, the student comes to me, says he was the proud president of Cornell's Federalist Society. For any of your viewers who don't know, Federalist Society is an American conservative legal organization, and it advocates for textualism and originalism in the interpretation of the Constitution. So his goal when he came to me was, I want to land a federal clerkship, but it has to be with a Trump-appointed judge, and it has to be a very conservative Trump-appointed judge. Sure. He's asking me to help him get this, right? My job was to help the student accomplish their goal, and I didn't think twice about whether my personal views or his personal views aligned. It didn't matter if the way we saw the world was different. My job was to impartially help this student accomplish their goal. I reached out to every contact I had. I reached out to alums, former clerks, judges. Eventually, I helped him, and now at this moment, he's clerking for the U.S. District Court at the Southern District of Florida with one of the top Republican judges that he applied to. And in working with this student, I was honestly very impressed by his work ethic, his respectfulness. He was just as kind as he was brilliant. And later that year, I was teaching a class, and I had the opportunity to hire a TA. Immediately, I thought of this student, and I hired him. Yeah. We worked hand in hand together throughout the year, and he was by far the best TA that I've ever had. I just tell you this story to show you the deep commitment to fairness and impartiality and doing what's asked of me to the best of my ability. I also believe that listening to people from different viewpoints provides the most well-rounded approach to solving a problem. If nobody's there questioning my thinking, I wouldn't be able to learn and grow. And it's this reason that I've made a commitment, and I'm going to make it publicly here today on the record, to hire a Republican attorney as my law clerk. If I'm elected. As I mentioned, this role of a law clerk is integral to my decision, and I want the people of our county to know that they can trust I'm going to do everything in my power to be impartial and consider every side of a case. I've been approached by several local attorneys who've indicated their interest and willingness as serving as my clerk if elected. For the sake of their privacy, I'm not going to disclose names today, but I am making this promise on the record that the law clerk that I choose to go hand in hand and help me every step of the process will be a lifelong registered Republican.
Oh, wow. Well, we're just about out of time, so I don't want to skip around too much. I apologize. We're just running late, and it's that kind of season, election season, right?
Yes.
So I do want to ask, if people want to find out more about you, if we haven't covered with our 2 interviews, where can they go to find out more?
So you can visit my Facebook page that the committee put together for me, Michaela, Rossettie, Azemi for Judge. Visit the website, friendsofmichaela.com, and you can Google me. I'd encourage your viewers to talk to neighbors, talk to friends, talk to local leaders in the community that you trust, and trust the opinions of people who don't have an agenda in this, who are not trying to impress my opponent or I. And you know, in closing, what do I say to voters?
Yeah, what would you say to voters? We definitely have time for that. I always like to end on that.
So first and foremost, get out to vote.
Yes.
It's so important. Early voting starts Saturday the 26th. And so if you can, it's a great way to skip the lines, get out there, do early voting, ensure that this happens. Voting in this election is critical, and it's an opportunity to have your voice heard and make a real difference in our community. I would encourage voters to vote for fairness, for family values, for community and compassion, and to vote to challenge the status quo. Regardless of who you choose, I am extremely humbled to have this opportunity to be a candidate in this election. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show for these 2 times, and best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. The Boss Security Roof Cam. Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Let's go through some comments, and thank you again to our guest, Michaela Rossettie Azemi. First up, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I just wanted to comment on where you'll be voting and how quickly you vote. I like to go on the day the old-fashioned way. And besides the honor of voting in our wonderful county of Steuben, I get to stand in line and chat with people who come out of the woodwork. So to sneak out of the hills to come into their hometowns and do the honor of showing up to vote en masse. I'm sure there will not be as great as Madison Square Garden, but you'll see it sure sees a lot of friends. You get to see a lot of friends that you don't get to see very often, and friends and co-patriots who want our Steuben County rich with Trump's plans and for the future. And I especially like, with all of us getting older, the fact that our family can care for us and get paid to do that in their busy lives. A lot of people that I know are giving up their careers and their lives to house and also take care of their aging relatives or even aging friends that live next door. That's us. That's Steuben County, taking care of not only family, but friends and loved ones, though we take care of each other with the help of Trump's great financial wisdom. It's great having your program on. Well, thank you. I really enjoy it. And I'm late for work many mornings because I can't get away from your program. Well, thank you. That's very nice. I don't want you to get in trouble. But thank you, Frank, for being brave and doing this. Bye. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate it. Next up, good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I think that Trump has a very good chance of flipping New York red, considering the margin of 3% in the last governor's election. And that was before NYC, New York City, was overrun with illegals in hotels, immigrant children in public schools, being supported with tax dollars that should be used for local issues. We upstate voters always say that New York City makes New York blue, but the Democrats may have destroyed themselves. What they have done to the city cannot be blamed on a few busloads shipped in from Texas 2 years ago. From federal to state to city to local, Democrats own the chaos that they have caused. Trump is the only hope for New Yorkers to have their city back, for getting their city back. And they have the numbers to turn New York red. Well, thank you, Fred. Appreciate that. Last comment. Michaela seems very likable and sincere. Too bad she's a Democrat. By having said that, if I lived in Steuben County, I feel that I could vote for her, even though she is a Democrat. Well, thank you. I'll pass along those nice words. We were talking about Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. We could continue to talk about that. What did the media not fans of it? Trump's Madison Square Garden event features crude and racist insults. With battleground states up for grabs, Trump oddly returns to New York City for Madison Square Garden rally. Oddly, that's in the headline from the Daily News. With the presidential campaign entering its final stretch, Donald Trump is making an odd choice. He's turning his focus to New York City, where he will rally supporters at Madison Square Garden. His deep blue hometown is a curious place to home in on in the last days of the election, as the GOP nominee has the slimmest chances of winning New York. But strategists on both sides agree the rally provides an opportunity for Trump to do what he loves most, put on a spectacle. And where better than the nation's signature arena? In fact, New York City may even make perfect sense as a background for Trump's showmanship. The city is at the center of several signature issues of the former president's 2024 campaign. Democrats pushed a counter message during Trump's rally on Sunday by projecting a message that he, quote, praised Hitler onto Madison Square Garden in New York. Photos and videos of the projection on Madison Square Garden went viral on Sunday as a heavily attended rally in New York City unfolded. The Trump praised Hitler projection comes in response to a recent report in The Atlantic that claimed the former president told his former chief of staff, General John Kelly, that he wanted German generals like the one Hitler had. All right. And without any evidence, Tim Walz claimed that Trump's rally is a Nazi reenactment. Don't miss on this. Go do your Google on this. Donald Trump's got this big rally going at Madison Square Garden. There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing here. Pushing conspiracy theories, pushing lies. Wow. Hillary Clinton claims Trump will be reenacting 1939 Nazi rally at New York City's Madison Square Garden. President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America, were lining up, essentially pledging their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it. Now, it may be a leap for some people, and a lot of others may think, I don't want to go there. I don't want to say that. But please open your eyes to the danger that this man poses to our country, because I think it's clear and present for anybody paying attention. You can tell kind of in a little bit of desperation mode. Now, we got to take another short break. Wow, where did the show go, huh? We are moving right along. Got 15 minutes left. Keep those comments coming in. What did you think of the rally? Have you early voted? Yes, early voting kicked off on Saturday. We've heard from a few people that said that they have already attended. I am going to go some point later in the week, walk over to the library and do my early voting. Are you thinking of early voting? I'd love to hear from you. Also, what did you think about Donald Trump's interview with Joe Rogan? That was another big story coming out on Friday after this program, of course. Trump was late 3 hours to a rally saying sorry, but we got to try to win this thing. And that was in reference to doing the interview where I guess Joe Rogan has an audience of somewhere around 14 million people that watch his program. So if you saw that, what did you think? Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact Boss Security for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. A couple of comments. Good morning. Well, hey, good morning. Great commercial sponsored by the NFL. Not Democrat, not Republican, just asking you to vote. Saying that only 60% of eligible voters voted in the 2020 elections. So let's get out there and do our part and vote. Thank you very much. Are you thinking about early voting? That's a question we posed today. Now, Ryan King from the New York Post says almost every major poll has the 2024 presidential race as a toss-up with just over a week until Election Day. And that appears to be good news for former President Trump. There are three reasons for that. One, Trump has obliterated Harris's polling lead. Two, national polls have never shown him so close ahead of Election Day. And three, he's polling ahead by the slimmest margins in every swing state. Of course, dead heat polling suggests that the election could go either way. But these factors point to Trump regaining momentum as Americans turn out in record numbers for early voting, fill out their mail-in ballots, and prepare to line up at the polls on Election Day. Even in the polls where Trump is lagging behind Harris, there appears to be a clear trend of him gaining some steam in the election home stretch while Harris's numbers are falling. Head-to-head, Harris currently edges Trump out 50 to 49% among likely voters. They split evenly in battleground states at 50% apiece, according to Sunday's CBS News YouGov poll, which had a margin of error of plus or minus 2.6 percentage points. But critically, that marks a 1-point gain for Trump in the battleground states from 2 weeks ago, or an erosion of Harris's advantage over Trump. Harris led up by 4 percentage points in the national polls after the candidates' only debate on September the 10th. At the start of October, Harris had a 2-point edge over Trump. I don't want to get into all the wonky numbers. You get the idea. Battleground states are starting to swing towards Trump, and we know historically he has polled lower than the numbers that he actually receives. And we're not going to go through all the numbers, but why is Trump so formidable? Just like Biden and Clinton, Harris has massively outraised and outspent Trump. Her ground game is also widely believed to be far more robust than his. Still, Trump appears to be benefiting from a certain degree of nostalgia among voters who are generally giving his former presidential administration higher marks now than they did at the time. Looking back on his economic performance, 62% of registered voters felt the Trump years were good compared to 32% who described them as bad. When it comes to the Biden years, 32% mark them as good, relative to 61% bad. Polls have long shown voter dissatisfaction that the country endured during the post-pandemic years under Biden, as well as a border crisis that is unfolding. No one knows for sure until Election Day and how it will turn out. Polls are widely believed to have underestimated Trump in both 2016 and 2020. Yet at the same time, many Democrats have taken solace in their belief that they outperformed polls in the 2022 midterms and 2023 off-year elections. There's still hope on the left that polls could be systematically underestimating Harris this time around. Now, Maureen Dowd at the New York Times said a quote from Ari Emanuel, Rahm Emanuel's brother. This election is going to come down to probably 120,000 votes, Ari said. You probably have 60% of the male vote for Trump, and the female vote is 60-40 for Kamala. It's a jump ball. We're going to find out who wants this more, men or women. So Maureen Dowd asked the question, are we back to the days of Mars versus Venus? Or did we never leave? In the ultimate battle of the sexes, in the most visceral of elections, who will prevail? The women, especially young women, who are appalled at the cartoonish macho posturing and stances of Donald Trump and his entourage, or the man, including many young men, union men, Latino and black men, who are drawn to Trump's swaggering, bullying, and insulting, seeing him as the reeling backward antidote to shrinking male primacy. Drill into the primary yearnings of men and women, their priorities, identities, anger, and frustration makes this election even more fraught. So how bad do you want to win this thing, ladies, is what she asks. Putting down people is not real strength. Real strength is standing up for those who can't stand for themselves. That's what we should want in our daughters and our sons, Obama said. And that's why I want to see, and that's what I want to see in the President of the United States of America. So that's Maureen Dowd. Now, got to take a break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox, and then we will wrap up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. The Boss Security Roof Cam. Contact Boss Security in Horseheads for all your business and home security needs. Couple comments before we wrap things up as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. Good morning, Frank. Well, hey, good morning. I voted early on Saturday. The first day. I enjoyed the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Thank you very much for that comment. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning to you, too. I saw where Walz told AOC that they would promote her to Speaker of the House if they're elected. Can you imagine that? Trump could use that threat in a campaign ad, that's for sure. I did not see that he said that. It doesn't surprise. He's a little bit weird when he's off the cuff. Answers much like Harris. Next up, Frank. I've been hearing about overseas voters in the past week. Apparently, there are about 2,800,000 eligible voters overseas. Only about 95,000 voted in 2020. Some Democrats are saying that there are as many as 9 million voters overseas. This might be the area to watch to see how many after-election votes are counted from overseas voters this time around. I bet it's very hard to verify legitimate votes from overseas. Thanks, Ken. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, America is having a panic attack over the election. Voters see permanent damage to the country if their candidates lose. There are not enough gummies I can take to soothe the angst, said one person. I honestly legit kind of terrified. Okay, said Rebecca Williams, a 46-year-old Atlanta resident. With little more than a week to go in what could be the closest presidential election in American history, the nation is on edge. Partisans on both sides are paralyzed with suspense and apprehension as they look to white-knuckle it through the coming days. The candidates have amped up their appeals to an apocalyptic degree as the campaigns frantically work to turn out the vote. As Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both campaigned in the crucial swing states, voters broadly said that this election feels different than those that came before, less a regular Democratic exercise than a national panic attack, a twilight clash that could end democracy for good. So how are you feeling with just a little more than a week out to Election Day? What are your thoughts at the end of the day? Are you having a panic attack? Just before we go, Rubio over the weekend was on Fox News Sunday. He said, how interesting, and he was referencing Milley and Kelly's comments, how interesting that these claims that were made this week pop up with a week and a half to go before the election. If you, in fact, believe, as some of these people claim, that Donald Trump is all these horrible things, Nazi, fascist, all these crazy terms that they throw around, why didn't you stand up and walk out of the White House? Or that administration the moment you heard those terms? Why didn't you say that at that time and not wait until after the fact? Those are questions are never going to get asked because this is entirely a political hit job where these people are trying to elevate themselves to become more employable and be able to make more money. Yeah, make the rounds on CNN and MSNBC. So Shannon Bream said, do you think people like General Milley, like John Kelly, are lying? And Rubio said, yes, I do. But even if they aren't lying, or even let's say you don't want to call them a liar, I would say it's very dubious to see these accusations coming at the very last minute right before an election. These are the kind of things somebody says that in front of me, I say it right away. I walk out, I resign, I leave. They don't do any of those things. We are out of time. Unbelievable. Thank you to our guests this morning, Michaela Rossettie Azemi, for being on the program. She's running for Steuben County Judge and Steuben County Family Court Judge. We will have her opponent on Friday. So let's go through the list just quickly to mark your calendars. Tomorrow we'll have New York State Supreme Court candidate in the 7th Judicial District, Ed White. On Wednesday, we'll have Stacey Romeo, who's also running for New York State Supreme Court in the 7th District. On Thursday, former Congressman, current candidate for Assembly, and current Steuben County Republican Chairman Joe Sempolinski will be our guest on Thursday. On Friday, we've got two guests. Matthew Bozzetti, he's running for Chemung County Family Court Judge. He'll be joining us in the 6 o'clock hour. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, the Steuben County the Steuben County Court candidate, Matt McCarthy, will be joining us. And on Monday, Bobby Ann Cox, she'll be telling us about her misgivings, her stress, if you will, about Proposition 1, and we'll learn all about Proposition 1. Well, thank you to everybody who joined us this morning. So many great comments, so many great waves. Really appreciate it. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty, down to the wire. And so this next week is going to be exciting. You will not want to miss a minute. Tune in every weekday morning, starting at 6 a.m. for Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, have a great day, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early. And as always, you can still reach out at that number on the bottom of the screen and contact me throughout the day. I would love to hear from you. So again, have a great day, and we will see you bright and early tomorrow morning. I look forward to it already.